Commercial, promo, automotive, imaging, e-learning, gaming. There are certain genres of voiceover that everybody instinctively thinks about, or the genres that everybody dreams about. But there are also a lot of cool genres of voiceover that don't get talked about nearly as much. Yet they can provide ample opportunities for the enterprising VOpreneur to build a nice little niche market for themselves. My guest today has done that on YouTube. His clients include Microsoft, Mindspring, and Hidden Games. Welcome to the show, Raphael Neve. Did I get it right?
Yes, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Marc. Thank you for having me.
I love the brand concept of being the Swiss Army knife of voiceover. I think I read that on your LinkedIn
Yeah,
profile.
it's been a while since I've updated that.
Talk to me about that, though. Talk to me about being the Swiss Army knife of voiceover. So what other skill sets are you bringing to the table that you're able to offer to your clients as a value add?
Well, I think that since voiceover is part of a bigger spectrum of work and of an industry that is localization and communication, any other skills that you have that are relevant to that are always going to be an amazing value add, right? So I'm bilingual. I'm from Mexico, and I grew up in a bilingual house. So English just kind of stuck on me. So I got Spanish and English pretty much as if both were my native tongues, right? Um, and being able to provide that value to clients where it's like, oh, you need a one-stop shop localization solution, you can get it with me, right? Like I can translate your script and also record it, and I got audio engineering knowledge, so I can create the production around your ad, around your voiceover. Like I can send you a mastered finished recording for you to just drop into your project, right? So combining these different skill sets, I think, makes me pretty versatile. Where
Yeah.
normally what usually happens is like I have somebody else would say like, well, I am a voiceover person and I can provide you this voiceover in this language, and that's about it, right?
Yep.
And what I really enjoy about the conjugation of all of these different skill sets, it's like I have um I have my voiceover, I have another language, I have audio engineering, I have translation, localization, that sort of stuff. So I think it all comes together rather nicely. And another thing that I forgot to mention is that I have a lot of like acting and stage experience. So performance and versatility in my voice is something that I'm very familiar with. So I'm not a stranger to modifying my voice and being very flexible as to the different like tones and intentions that I can provide, which adds even more to the diversity and the Swiss Army knifeiness of what I can offer my clients. Yes.
Yeah, you're not just a voiceover studio. You're like a full-blown production studio. Like you you
Yeah,
you
honestly.
offer all of the things, which is a huge value add.
Yes, yes, thank you. I always think that being able to go the extra mile and
Yeah.
provide like more solutions to the client instead of like, I got this voiceover dude, but he needs but I also am gonna need a production guy because he doesn't really know what to do with it. I think that's always going to make picking you a no-brainer, right?
Yep.
And
Sure.
customer service too, right? Like treating your clients well, like treating them like family, treating them maybe not like friends. Like friends is not the right word that I would use,
Yep.
but having a great relationship, conversation, a joke here and there to brighten up their day, I think it always makes the difference.
Yeah, 100% for sure. So I know that apart from being the Swiss Army knife of voiceover, again, I love that. I know you also have a passion for content creation. So tell me a little bit more about that. What kind of content are you creating? What's the stuff that gets you the most excited?
There's two sides to that, and the first one is that I have a music project. I'm also a musician.
Of course,
I
why wouldn't you be?
I'm a bit of a renaissance man. Like anything that I'm interested in, I will just like jump into and start learning and
Yep.
investigating and stuff. and I have a music project. It's called For, but like FOVR, like the U is has a V.
Okay.
Um and it's this mix of also like some songs are in English, some are in Spanish. There's different genres, like some of them are like rock, some of them are electronic and stuff. So to promote that, I had to learn to become a content creator
Sure.
and create content to promote my music. Right now, that's on a bit of a standby because I really want to focus on my voiceover business. But I put out some songs, have some moderate success for a beginner, right? Like I've had this like moment of wow, I'm being able to reach new audiences and people are liking the stuff that I'm making, which is always like, oh wow, right? Like I never expected that to happen. Um, and then there's another side where it's like I really enjoy consuming gaming content. I'm since I was little, honestly, gaming and games are the reason that I do what I do because um my parents were always pretty busy, right? And video games were always like, well, there's nobody else in the house, like
Mhm.
I need to entertain myself with something, and these games have these stories and music and characters and stuff, but they're all in English. Oh
Right.
no. So sink or swim, right? Throw a baby into the water, he learns to swim. Throw a kid into an English video game world that he's interested in, he'll end up learning English just by mimicry and investigation. We had this big old dictionary that I would just refer to, like this massive book I would just
Wow.
open and
Yep.
look up, right? So uh looking up stuff about new games, people sharing their experiences, they're sharing their moments between friends or alone, has always been something that I'm very happy consuming and like watching and following. I've never tried doing it myself, but sometimes out of just hobby I do record my play sessions with my friends. We have a great time and it's like wow, these really fun organic moments that we have together, like they have to
Nice.
stay there. I have to keep them, right?
Yep.
Because they're really lovely. So in terms of content, there's those two sides. It's like I like produce I've learned a lot about music marketing and voiceover mic marketing, which I've kind of like gelled together,
Yep.
and content consumption of like gaming and tech and whatever. Right now I'm a sucker for VR. Like I'm super like into it, and all of the new possibilities that it can give you for like work and whatnot. I bought a Quest 3, and you put that on and it's like you have three screens, and sometimes I record and it's like I have a screen with a script here and then another with a podcast that it's in the background while I'm working to keep me focused.
All over on the technology sphere. It's funny. I have a nephew who he was here visiting a couple of weeks ago, and he brought his I think it's the Quest VR headset that he's
Probably,
got.
yes.
I didn't play around with it, but my older girls were playing with it, and the chaos that ensued in our basement as a result of that, I was like, it's a wonder something didn't get broken, because like when they get going, they really get going. Like it gets very physically intense. But then on the flip side of that, Kaylee, my 4-year-old, my mom just introduced her a few weeks ago to the old Nintendo Wii.
No way.
And so she's like, doing Wii Sports, jousting and cow racing
It's
and all this
blowing
sort of
her
stuff.
mind.
And she's having so much fun, and watching her do that and watching her experience that is it's pretty fun. She's all excited. She gets excited to go to Graham's place so she can play some
That's
more Wii.
lovely.
That's what she wants to do now. So I love that you've been able to take all of these different sides of you and who you are as a person. And what a beautiful place to be in your life, in your career, when your passions, your hobbies, your interests can also completely align with what you do to make a living. Like
Yeah,
that's
I'm
a pretty
super
cool place to
grateful.
be, right?
I'm extremely grateful for it. I'm extremely grateful for it and the way that it's transformed my life and the life of my family.
Yeah.
Um, we, there's some advantages and a lot of disadvantages to living in a third world country, and my family wasn't always like super well off, and right now it's like I just I just helped them buy like a brand new car the other day,
Nice.
like
That's amazing.
after like 20 years of holding on to this 2001 Ford Focus, complete beater of a car, a danger to drive, right?
Yep.
And it's transformed everything. Actually, there's an interesting part to it, and it's that, uh, and I guess we'll get into that topic later. Most of the work that I do right now, like the biggest bulk of it, is dubbing for YouTube content creators, and my mother is the mostly the person who taught me English, because her English is also stellar. She was a teacher, and she when she had us, like me and my sister, she dropped out of the workforce and dedicated herself to just taking care of us, right? So it was just on one income, my dad's income, which was barely enough, right? And after 26 years of, not being in the workforce, getting back in is like, what do I do, right? and
Yep.
and lately she was just like, man, I wish I had a job that I could work and, you know earn my own money and save up and whatnot. And I have the blessed opportunity to be able to provide her with that, right? And I know that I could definitely be like, here, mom, have this amount of money weekly. She would not take it, like,
Yep.
she really likes earning her own money and feeling productive and a part of the operation. So right now, and we'll get into it later, I suppose, part of my process is that I am given a video by one of the content creators, and I send it over to her, and she creates a transcript with different tools, and then translates the transcript, sends it back to me, right? And then
I
I
love that.
record it, and we split the. I'm like, okay, so this amount of money is yours. This is for the business and whatnot, and it's an absolutely, like, I'm very grateful for it. I feel very blessed, and I'm determined to make the most of it as much time as I can, afford to do it.
What a cool thing to be able to do and to be able to bring your mom into the mix on that. Well,
Yeah,
so let's start at the beginning of that story because I want to hear. I know you took Playbook, and one of the things you talked about in Playbook was the section that goes through the idea of the unique value proposition. And as you worked through that exercise, that's when you landed on this YouTube niche that seems to check a lot of boxes for you. So
100%.
so talk about what that looked like. How did you how did you piece together the puzzle that lands ultimately on YouTube dubbing?
Okay, so it's interesting because you there's like different pieces to the puzzle. The first one being that what I first started doing was like working on Upwork for mostly e-learning, right? Like e-learning was my bread and butter. That's
Okay.
Mindspring. Shout
Yep.
out to Mindspring, amazing clients. Um, yes, I did a lot of e-learning. It was great, and whatnot. However, it was not very consistent. Like sometimes there were projects, sometimes there were not, and I still did not know how to market myself to find more clients, right? Um, and then I started transitioning away from Upwork and away from pay to plays and away from, these pages where at the end of the day you're not really the business owner, but you have to go through a middleman and whatnot.
Yep.
And then I took Playbook, right? And I had this idea in my mind of, okay, the natural transition and what I should do according to, the kind of like framework that most VOs do is like, okay, so you go independent from the pay to plays and the freelance platforms. You got to get your website, you got to get your demos, get your commercial, get your your automotive, your e-learning and whatnot. So I got a commercial demo from Scott Burns. Shout out Scott Burns, amazing guy.
Nice.
Voiced a lot of Fun fact, voiced a lot of video game characters from my childhood. It was amazing talking to him. And then I was like, okay, so next stop after getting that done, I got to get me, animation and video gaming, dubbing and voice acting demos, right? So I was like, okay, that's next in my plan. That's what I'm gonna do. And once I get that, that's what I'm gonna do the rest of the time, right?
Yep.
So I started saving up for that, started setting it up. I was in meetings with, I think it was Abacus Studios, Abacus Entertainment or something. They make really great demos, and I'm still pending to do it. Just it's probably gonna be more in the medium term, because right now, short term, this is doing great, right?
Yep.
So I started planning with them, and then I it's interesting. I was just like job hunting everywhere I could find. And suddenly I find a post on Reddit. On Reddit, on r slash voiceover or r slash for hire or something, one of those subreddits that are like job oriented.
Mhm.
And it's like, I'm looking for a voiceover artist for a new YouTube channel. These requirements, this and that. And I'm like, hey, might as well, right?
Yep.
This was after taking Playbook and doing the unique value proposition and whatnot. I gotta confess, I haven't gotten to the email part yet. I haven't sent a single email. I got intercepted by this
You
complete.
found something else that works.
I
There's
found
nothing wrong with
something else
that.
that works. Exactly. And when it stops working, you rest assured I will get those emails going, right? So yeah, I messaged this person and we messaged back and forth
Yep.
and we started working together on this YouTube channel project where I would be the voice and somebody else would be the script writer and somebody else would be the editor, and we just kind of put together a channel, right? Like
Okay.
the outsiders would think like, oh, this is just one guy, right? He makes his own videos. But
Yep.
in reality, is this team of people creating a YouTuber together,
Okay.
right? Like a Megazord from Power Rangers or whatever, or like put all the pieces together and it's one dude, right?
Right.
So it, unfortunately, that channel kind of didn't pan out. But turns out that this person was being hired by a bigger conglomerate or like network called Epic Elite or Elite Alliance or something like that. Like
Okay.
they kind of have two names, right? And it's this network of YouTube channels that they manage, which are like big YouTubers that need management, but also they have this like, let's call it like R&D section where they're like,
Okay.
they create new channels or help clients that want to create new channels from zero, from scratch, with like the best team, the best voiceover and whatnot. And after that fell through, I was like, well, what a shame. It was really good pay and really good experience and whatnot. And then suddenly I find a post again on Reddit, posted by a different person, and it turns out they were part of that company too. And they were like, hey, we've already worked with you. Like, what a surprise. And we really liked your work. Like, hop on. And this network started putting me on to different channels. Right now, I'm the voice of like 3 or 4 channels that they manage. So that's one of them, right?
Okay.
And then working with this first experience of the channel that fell through, I started, networking with the editor and talking to them and being like, hey, so what is this world, right? Like, we hopped into this Discord server, this platform used for gaming and like, communities for very non-serious stuff and serious stuff too, but mostly non-serious.
Yep.
It's marketed as a gaming thing, and it's like, what is this? Like, we hopped into a server and we're like working together on a paid project over a Discord server. This is surreal. And he's like, oh no, people do it all the time. Here, sends me a link to a YouTube server where it's an entire massive community of content creators that are like uh, creating job postings
Wow.
and people that are like offering their services. They're like, I need a video editor for my new channel, or like, I need a voice actor for my new channel. Here's the terms, here's the rate. I need these characteristics, and I need a thumbnail maker, graphic designer. Show me your portfolio and whatnot. Super active, super fast offers coming in daily. And I'm like, what is this? Like, the sacred texts did not mention this. Like, this didn't exist.
And so this
So
was Reddit or this was Discord
this
or your
was Discord.
this is Discord. Okay.
This is Discord. Like, this community that I'm talking about, like at this point, is Discord.
Okay.
You know, and I started looking into it and seeing all these people and all these posts, and I was like, well, it's hunting season. Like, let's
Yeah.
start sending some messages, right?
Yep.
So I started sending messages and offering my portfolio and whatnot. One thing led to the other, and I ended up finding these clients some clients that are exactly like I mentioned, the other ones that are just creating a new YouTube channel from scratch. But then suddenly one day, and here's the thing, if I can share one thing with your audiences, that I once heard, that luck is when opportunity meets preparation, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
by God, I definitely experienced that day when I suddenly find a post that says, looking for a voice actor to dub my content from English to Spanish. One-stop solution. Like, I'm looking for somebody that does everything, just hands me the video in Spanish. And I'm like,
It's a good time to be the Swiss Army knife of
it is
voiceover
a
when
good time to
yeah.
be the Swiss Army knife man, right? So I reach out, and it's we have this chemistry. The guy's a gaming content creator, so he's definitely like goofy and open and fun and whatnot. And I'm like, you know what? Don't even worry about anything. I'll just download your video, use like some tools to like rip out the audio, like remove the speaking track, and then I hop onto Adobe Premiere and put it all together, and I record. I create a script with some tools. If you have the script, give it to me. If you don't worry, I'll figure it out. Create the script, translate the script, record the script onto your video utilizing Adobe Premiere's voiceover tool so that I can time it and keep it consistent with the way that you're talking.
Right?
And suddenly, here you go, finished product. And the guy was like, what? Like, what? What the heck? Right?
That's how you turn a first-time customer into a repeat customer, though, by
Yes,
being
sir.
able to
Yes, sir.
provide that level of service. Well, it's interesting to hear that because I was curious about that because when we think about dubbing, so often we have that picture of the voice actor in the booth and they're looking at the film on the screen and they're trying to sync their read or sync lips or whatever, and it can be very challenging and tedious. So I was curious if
It is.
YouTube dubbing worked in a similar fashion, and it sounds like it
It
sounds like it
does.
can.
It can,
Yeah.
yes, because there's different approaches. Like, sometimes there's channels that are like faceless, right? Like, it's
Right.
just a voiceover.
Yep.
Easy, right? Like,
No problem.
you
Right.
just
Yeah.
have to keep it on the timing, but you
Yep.
have a lot of freedom. But where the real challenge comes, and it's kind of a blessing, honestly, for my future endeavors, because I'm looking forward to creating dubbing for animation and video games. I've already been in a couple like indie games, but I want to like really get into it once I'm like, I don't know, once I feel like it, or this stuff's working or whatever. Um, where part of the thing that you have to do when localizing dubbing is the mouth movement sometimes lends itself not to the translation that would be the
Sure.
correct one,
Right.
but you have to like kind of twist the words and the meaning to communicate the same thing with maybe less words if English was more compact than
Right.
Spanish at saying that thing, or
Yep.
maybe more words, or maybe the mouth shapes completely do not match the normal translation. So you have to be very creative about it, and a lot of skills come together to do that, which is great protection against AI, might I add.
I was gonna say, yeah. So I'm curious then, the way you're doing it, you're the one-stop solution, right? You're able to
Hmm.
download the video, create the script, translate or translate the script. Then you're able to do your recording, edit the video back in Premiere, send a finished product. And I can certainly see where there's a case for that and why that would be massive value, right? Fewer people involved, fewer steps in the process, fewer areas for things to go wrong, probably gets done a lot faster too. Is that the norm of what these types of creators are looking for? Or is there the opportunity for the voice actor who maybe doesn't have all that skill set? They can do the dubbing, but they can't do the script or translation, or they can provide the audio, but they can't edit the video to send back. Like, is there opportunities in this space for that VO? Or is
I
this
think
really a place where people who can do it all can really thrive?
I think that people who can do it all can really thrive, but I don't think that people who can't do it all at the same time are like completely locked out of it. Because, for example, I think that I'm not a fan of the guy, but a pioneer in this situation is Mr. Beast, right? Like, with his
Okay.
dubs, he was kind of like the first one to be like, you know what? I already have my English channel. Why not open up to the entire Spanish audience too. Same content, just in Spanish, right? And I've looked into it, did some investigation, and the people that dub for him are the same people that dub like the cartoons that I grew up watching. You know, like the Mexican voice acting community is a very like the old boys club. You know, like
Okay.
everybody kind of knows each other, and it's a lot of oh, I know him, so I'm just going to give him an opportunity and whatnot. So there's disadvantages to that, but it is proof these people aren't translators and they're not editors and they're not like premiere wizards or whatever. They're voice actors and that's
Sure.
about it. They book time at a studio somewhere in Mexico City for the new Mr. Beast video and they record and that's it, right? So
Okay.
I would definitely say that there's a space for let's call them VO specialists. You know,
Yep.
some people don't have to be generalists like me. They are so incredibly amazing at just VO that just VO is enough to like, give them a living and make them an income. I gotta diversify. I'm more of a jack of all trades kind of guy, not hyper specialized, super uber incredible at one thing. I'm just kind of good at multiple and it all comes together. But I definitely think that there's an opening for people that don't have the entire like one-stop shop, right? and,
Sure.
and and honestly, some of the clients that I've worked with, um they give me the script already made, or they they have an editor already for me to work with. However, I will say that at least for my methodology, knowing how to use Premiere and
Hmm.
stuff is a definite boon, because
Sure.
the way that you're recording these takes, it's not, you open up your DAW, like, I don't know, what do you use? Pro
Adobe.
Tools?
Well, see, I use Adobe Audition because
Adobe
I'm an
Audition,
Adobe
right?
guy, right? So I use Premiere too.
Right. So you use Adobe Audition when you're like, recording a script, e-learning, whatever, record it all in one go, then you do some editing to like cut
Yep.
down the mistakes and whatnot. You can't do that here. You have to go line by line, recording piece by piece while watching the video in sync, and matching the sounds to the mouth movements of your client. And honestly, I have not found a better fit for that workflow than Adobe Premiere with the voiceover tool, because it gives you a countdown. It allows you to like, this is what I want to record, just this section,
Just that section. Yeah.
exactly, it's definitely an advantage. I would say that it gives you a lot more control, but I wouldn't say that it's the only way. I'm sure there's others, like stranger things have happened.
So when you get some of these, you said some of your clients will provide you with scripts. So will these scripts be time coded then, and you're just kind of working off a time code, or are you always working with the video?
No, I always work with the
You
video.
oh, okay.
100%. Yeah, I
Okay.
I I don't know. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but I'm not super confident in not seeing, like, working blind. I'd much
Yep.
rather know what's going on, because honestly, having the context of what's happening on screen is always a huge help to
Sure.
knowing what you're doing.
Makes a big difference in the type of delivery. So I want to talk more about who the client is here. So I know you're in a very specific niche and you're working kind of, it sounds like you're working with influencers and people in the gaming space, but I feel like this category could be really broad. Like we could be going through
Mhm.
from the influencer space to the film side, to the multinational creating video content in multiple languages or overdubbing content that they've created for where the different countries where they operate or whatever. Are you only working with one type of client, or what are some of the other types of clients that are out there for this type of work?
Well, for this type of work, me specifically, right now, I'm at capacity for
Yep.
how much work I want to have. And right now, the work that I'm doing in that dubbing space is pretty much like gaming channels, right?
Okay.
Because they've been paying really great. I've been getting along with them really great. There's a great relationship. I've been with them for more than a year now. So, I haven't felt the need to like reach out to more people, right? However, I am 100% sure that there are, other channels with other topics that do need that kind of service. The other day, uh me and one of my friends are huge history buffs, and we found this channel that was like, detailing the entire history of how the Rus became the Vikings and the Russians at the same time, and told you this entire story of like how they migrated from this place to the other. And I was like, wow, this content is great. The voice is organic, like you can tell there's a lot of like passion for history and education going into it. And my friend was like, sell them dubbing, go get them. And I was like, no, 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 no. I just looked into this in the description. They already have a Spanish channel. They're already in on it, like, and I'm thinking, how many sources of entertainment, how many projects and whatnot are being localized to different audiences, and we have no idea. Like, I would have never guessed if I hadn't looked into it. I would have been like, wow, what a cool little niche channel for history buffs. I'm sure nobody in that's a Spanish speaker is looking into this. Wrong. Those people know that it's like, I already have the content. Dubbing
Yeah.
it is not as expensive as making it, and it definitely has a bigger ROI because it just opens a gate to a proportionally sort of equal audience, right? So,
So this
yes,
is that brings up a really interesting point then, because you talked about Reddit and Discord, and I'd like to dig into that a little bit more too. But part of this could literally be if there are YouTube channels that you watch and enjoy, regardless of what content or subject matter is, right? Because we all watch YouTube for different things.
for sure.
That could become a potential opportunity for dubbing if you speak a different language, obviously, than what they're doing or whatever. So that could be part of your lead generation, is just thinking about what is the content that
Exactly.
I'm consuming on YouTube, and can I pitch these people the idea of doing it in another language?
Exactly. Like, if I didn't have the workload that I have, and have my time already kind of like at capacity, I would definitely, like, what do you lose?
Yeah.
One of my friends always says, like, you already have the no, right? So you might as well go and try it. And you go into any YouTube channel worth its salt, and you go to the about section, and they have an email for business. It's all right there for you, right? So you have any YouTube channel that you're interested in, and you already know sort of like the workflow to dub it, you can just reach out and be like, hey, how would you like doubling your audience overnight?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer, I think.
Do you think the genre lends itself to talent who are naturally bilingual, or I know some that are trilingual. I know Nikki
Yes.
Mondolini speaks like 5 languages or something like that. Like, do,
Crazy.
do you think that it naturally lends itself to somebody who's already bilingual, or do you just have a little bit of advantage going in, but anybody that speaks any language, there's the
Hmm.
potential that content is going to be dubbed into their language so they could potentially do it?
It's a good question, because definitely being native and like bilingual and stuff gives you an advantage in some regards that are not like life or death, like, I, as a when I was growing up, uh everybody as a kid, unless you're kind of strange and dry and weird, you watch cartoons, right?
Yep.
And something really wonderful that my generation experienced before some strange rules were applied, is that dubs had this, let's call them Mexicanisms, where yes, they were dubbed into Spanish, but to make them even more, enjoyable and memorable to the Mexican audience, they would have these like inside jokes that only a Mexican audience would understand, or localized words, or localized, like, a joke that wouldn't translate well in English was
Okay.
completely like axed and turned into a Spanish one, right? So when you're bilingual and you have the context of the culture of the
Yeah.
language, you do have an advantage in creating content that's higher quality, more memorable, more accessible, and more enjoyable for the audience that you're going for. But even if you don't, you can still make a pretty competent, pretty serviceable, pretty what's the word? Robust, a very robust dub that there's a reason why there's like dubbing for Spanish is mostly called neutral Spanish. There's a neutral Spanish. There's like a neutral Spanish accent for all of Latin America, which is like a ton of like different countries with different cultures
Sure.
and different accents and whatnot. And there is a singular neutral accent and neutral like lexicon that is
Okay.
provided so that you can reach all of them, not any of them especially, but all of them. So
Right.
I think there's definitely a place for people that are not bilingual or whatever. They still have something to offer. They're still competitive, you know. Some people don't want their stuff localized or Mexicanized or Brazilianized or whatever, you know, like they want their content neutrally dubbed by somebody who's just competent enough at it, you know?
Yeah. That makes sense. So I'm curious about, and I think we'll go back to Discord and Reddit here a little bit, but it
Mhm.
seems to me like because there's a never-ending stream of content that is being created now,
Mhm.
and not just YouTube. You've got 100 different streaming services, and every one of them is trying to build their library and create original content. And I've noticed on Netflix, for example, I'm seeing more and more uh, movies on Netflix that are from foreign countries that have been dubbed into to English. So it seems like there is a ton of growth potential in this genre. And I'm is that are you seeing that?
Yes, for sure. I think well, they're definitely different fields what you're mentioning, like
Yeah,
because one thing is like user generated content and then there's like the Netflix studios approving a project and providing
sure.
funding and whatnot. But I definitely do think that there is a shift happening. I don't know if it already happened or if it's already we haven't seen the top of it, but I do notice how dubbing, at least for my country, uh, is definitely having this sort of like comeback, you know? Like after many years of boring neutral Spanish, like don't do Mexicanisms, don't give the locals what they want. A lot of, you know, animated shows and video games have literally like Mexican Spanish, Latin American Spanish, or whatever Spanish localization that just feels familiar to you.
Yep.
The characters speak the way you speak with your friends, and that makes it very memorable. That makes it very endearing. That makes it very yours, right? So I definitely think that, at least from what I can see from my corner of the world, there is this sort of like growth and shift happening where people realize, like, well, why not just open the door to an audience that's just as big as the English audience? It's a no-brainer again. Like the amount of money that my biggest client invests into creating these videos is peanuts compared to the amount of like growth that he's been having. Like in
Yep.
less than a year, he went from no Spanish viewers to 3 million
Wow.
Spanish views per month,
That's
right? Like
crazy.
it's insane. So it's like you can be like, "Hey, how would you like to just get 3 million viewers a month more than you had before, and all you got to do is, you know, invest in dubbing a few of your videos." Like it's a no-brainer.
Well, and that's, I mean, I know a couple of the podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis that are, obviously much larger than my podcast. They're getting millions of downloads already, but they've started doing that, right? They've started building out channels in other languages because you're already creating the content. You're having these
You might as
amazing
well.
interviews, amazing conversations with incredible people, talented people, influential people, wise people, whatever. Why not be able to make that more accessible to more people? So let's talk a bit more then about where you're finding this work. Now, I know you mentioned about Reddit. You were on the voiceover board on Reddit, but I'm guessing that part of this is being in the right communities or being on the right boards or being accessing the right Discord servers or whatever to find it. So you are you looking where gamers are hanging out or where producers are hanging out or where influencers are hanging out or what are the specific types of places that you're looking? I'm assuming it's not just in the voiceover areas.
Yes, well, it's definitely not where the gamers are hanging out because they're just gaming. Where the influencers are hanging out, they're mostly just interacting with their community. I think it's more where the producers are hanging out, where video
Okay.
editors hang out,
Okay.
where script writers hang out, where graphical design people hang out.
Okay.
Sometimes it pays to go into the dangerous jungles of the internet world and to, there's an entire community of people on YouTube that are just like the grind, and I'm going to make this YouTube channel explode and become rich, and in a gold rush sell pickaxes, like
Yes.
it just makes sense. Like some people are these like wannabe gurus are like, oh, I'm going to create content that sells this lifestyle to people. Okay, who's going to edit it? Who's going to voice it? You don't have a great, not you, but some of these creators is like, you don't have a knack for voiceover. I
Yeah.
can tell you're not comfortable on a mic. Let
Yep.
somebody else do it.
Yep.
Like pay them for it. You get a quality product. So
It feels like there's so many different places where you can tap into this because it is such a broad thing. Like, yes, there is the Netflix side of dubbing over international films, but then there's finding those YouTube channels that maybe you already consume yourself, reaching out to those people and pitching the idea of, have you ever thought about dubbing? There's getting into these different sources, Discord and Reddit, and finding people who are talking about creating channels and getting in from the ground up. And it feels like, particularly if you're a bilingual talent or a talent who speaks more languages, maybe part of it is just going to your clients who already exist and say, by the way, you're going to hire, you've hired me to do the video or do the voiceover in this language. Have you ever thought about creating, since you're creating the video anyway, do you want to create a second version in this other language that I speak or whatever? So it seems like there's almost an unlimited pool of places where you could go. And I know that's dubbing, macro dubbing, which is, maybe more than what we're specifically talking about here, but it just feels like there's a genre with a lot of opportunity. But then you also mentioned something earlier that I got to ask about, which is AI. Now, yeah, the human voice obviously brings something to the table that an AI voice doesn't. But I know that YouTube, for example, is working on resources that would allow you to use AI to, I could take videos that I've created for YouTube and I could have it do an AI version of Spanish or whatever. Are you worried about tools like that eroding from your business? Or do you think that the people that you're working with, all these same creators who also don't want their part of this threatened by AI, we band together and just work human to keep the humans going?
well, I think there's two important factors to consider, and that is the more complexity that goes into your work, the more overlapping skill sets that you're putting into your work, the more difficult you are to replace with AI. Because
Yep.
AI, it can generate a voice, yes. It can read a script, yes. It can, kind of convey emotion, sure. But I'm sure at some point, I don't know, 2030, 2050, I don't know, like AI will be able to like, oh my God, it does everything, right? But
Right.
right now it's like ask it to match a what is it like where you sync the audio into the person that you're dubbing's mouth movements.
Right.
Okay, okay, it created a translation. What if it doesn't fit the mouth movements? How does it solve that? How does it know like how to interpret the mouth movements, turn it into like a different set of words that means the same thing, and then at the same time convey the emotion that the person is conveying, and at the same time have this like cultural context of like what the viewers are kind of expecting from that person's sense of humor but localized to a different audience. I know that at some point, I know that I can be wrong, and I know that at some point I will probably be wrong. Like at some point somebody might watch this video and it's like, well, AI ended up doing it, right? But
Sure.
right now, the more complexity and the more value that you add to the table, instead of just being like, hey, I read a script. Well, guess what? AI also reads a script. It reads a script kind of well. The more things like that, the more you stack the deck with different skill sets, the more that day is pushed further into the future. And secondly, you mentioned something very important and something very interesting and something very true. And it's that these creators themselves don't want to be replaced by
Yep.
AI influencers or AI creators, and their communities don't want them to be replaced either. They want
Yep.
them, like
Yep.
if I don't know, anybody, let's think for a little about YouTube creators, like a very big one, I don't know, like PewDiePie. You probably heard of him
Yep.
because yeah, so he's one of the biggest names right now. He's already like kind of retired, focusing on his family. But if he, let's say he was still actively making videos, if he up and said like, hey guys, no more human videos, I got an amazing AI that's gonna be me, but it's not me, but he's kind of saying what I would say, people would be like, well, it's not the
Yeah.
guy I've been following this entire time. It's
Yep.
not him, Like, I'm not feeling this connection to this creator and these inside jokes we used to have. Sure, it's kind of like an imitation, and at a glance I can't tell a difference, but I'm not there's no it doesn't have the social
It's not
aspect
the
to it.
same.
It's
It's
not the
just
same.
it's not the same.
And then you apply that to the dubbing, where it's a thing about branding. Once a voice is associated with that person, sure, you can replace it, but if it ain't broke, most people like to don't fix it, like. And there is definitely, at least in my experience so far, there is definitely a certain loyalty and a certain part of the teamness, where it's
Yep.
like, we're in this together, we're building this together, like, thank you for your work, it's giving me great results, like. It definitely does depend a bit from what kind of YouTuber you're working with. Like, is it the kind of person that is just trying to cut costs, to get the most profit out of it, and doesn't really care about if it affects the end product?
Yep.
Well, you got to screen your clients for that. Or is it a great, uh, um, reciprocal human relationship, where it's like, we're part of a team, we're both passionate for doing this, we're creating something together, maybe not as friends, but as like companions, like,
Sure.
like you said, humans banding together against the bots, right? I think there's definitely an aspect of it. If you ask me a bottom line of where I'm afraid, I would say I am wary. I am always thinking like, how can I make myself less replaceable?
Yeah.
What other
It's a
things
good
can I
question.
provide? What
Yeah.
other things can I provide? What other combinations of skills? What other skills can I learn that I can apply to this, so that an AI can't just replace me with one script for now, right? Because they'll always get smarter, right? In
Yep.
theory, unless we hit like a plateau, which hasn't happened yet. Um, but but definitely, I am wary, but I'm not very doomy about it. If anything else, you always got to be like quick on your feet in life in general. So
Yep.
if I see it in the horizon, like, oh man, in 2-3 years, this might not be, I may not be able to do this anymore. Well, I'll definitely, and this is more like a financial education kind of thing, I definitely will have saved to be able to make a career change into something different. But right now, most careers that are office based, computer based, sitting on your butt on a chair all day based, they're all in danger. Like, you can't just be like, well, learn coding anymore, because
No, you can't.
yeah, like, I was talking with a friend who's a programmer, and I was like, what do you think might be like a good step? And he was like, I don't know, man, like, all things are kind of under fire right now. We'll just have to see, and we'll just have to find which clients prioritize and give more importance to human handcrafted product than AI product. There's always going to
So
be those people.
going down that AI vein a little further, but in a slightly different direction, what, if anything, are you doing to protect yourself right now? So are you putting anything into contracts or signing any kind of agreements or anything that would so that, some of these people you're collaborating with, you do a bunch of videos for them and then all of a sudden they take those videos that you've done and they use that to make an AI voice model and now they're like, "Oh, we got a model, we don't need you anymore," or whatever. Like, are you putting stuff in writing that's going to protect you from that?
I haven't had the need to do it so far. I probably could, and But the thing is, you make one video for a person, they already have enough data to
Yep.
make a model off you. Like the most recent algorithms for it, they need like a minute or
Yep.
5 tops, and that's
Yep.
like less than a YouTube video. Like if we're talking about that, you know, and even if they sign it, like I'm in Mexico, they're in, I don't know, like London, like what can I do, you know, like, and I don't know, I think more it's more of a thing of like vetting your clients properly and knowing what they want and what
Yep.
they're actually looking for, like reading between the lines of what they're seeking, instead of maybe making a less organic process by getting legal involved and whatnot. It's definitely good to be careful. I haven't had the need to do it because I do think that especially these days, contracts are paper, you know, in
Yep.
the end, like if people want to mess you up, they will.
Yeah.
So
It's a tough thing to ultimately to police and to track
exactly,
down
it
too.
AI has no regulations,
Yep.
like nowadays, like in general, like people are doing a lot worse things
Yep.
than copying voices, you know, a lot worse things, and they're not getting punished for it. So I think it's more a thing about vetting your clients, researching who they are, you know, creating these reciprocal relationships where you really get to know the person and know who you're depositing your trust into, more than getting things on paper and stuff. Because I do think that if somebody wants to mess you up, they will. They're not going to care about a paper, you know, especially with AI.
I had a really great conversation with Michael Everhard on the podcast. Michael's a voice actor who is working in the gaming space, and he's had a really unique opportunity to get in with an indie game developer and be a part of the process kind of from the ground up. And rather than just taking a traditional payment for voiceover service, they're all kind of working as collaborators and doing a profit share type of thing. And so if the
Royalties and
game makes
whatnot.
money, then everybody makes money. And if the
Sick.
game doesn't make money, then nobody makes money kind of thing, which I think is a really unique approach. It's almost like a startup kind of thing, right? Where you
Yes,
take
definitely.
equity and you're hoping that, you know, at some point you ended up signing on with a unicorn. I
Right.
feel like what you're talking about specifically with these YouTube creators lends itself to possibly that sort of a relationship where if you get a channel that gets monetized and is you're talking millions of views, I mean that channel's making some money. So is everything that you're doing right now just based on specific base rates, or have you ever explored doing kind of profit share or something like that based on, you know, if the channel gets this many views or this many subscribers or whatever?
You would have hit the nail right on the head, because I like both things are happening.
Okay.
And that's incredible, because it's like at the beginning, when the Spanish audience is not yet turning a profit, there is a set rate, a very good one, might I add, for my situation, my skill set, my you know, what I need. Very good rate. And then on top of that, once the channel breaks even and it's getting back what it puts into the videos, there is a space for profit sharing.
Nice.
Like
Okay.
some channels have been doing only profit share and profit share. Some channels have only been doing profit share, and some are doing rate plus profit share.
Okay.
And yes, definitely, it does feel like a startup. It does feel like working together on something to grow it and to make it more productive, more profitable, and then sharing the spoils between the entire team.
So that's a
And
conversation for a voice actor that's thinking about going into this
yes,
space or exploring it. They should be, you know, be willing to have that conversation or
yes,
be prepared to because ultimately, if the channel hits, I feel like you could make way more money on a
absolutely.
profit share than what you would make if you were just doing base rates, right? There's a little more risk involved, but that's the case for everybody that if
And
you're
if it
going at about it that
hits,
way.
it means you're valuable. It means
Yep.
your voice is resonating with the audience. It means people are connecting with what you're creating, right? So why shouldn't you have a share of the profits, right? Like it's definitely a conversation to have when you're pitching, and it's definitely a conversation where you need to have flexibility, where maybe no profit share right now does not mean no profit share ever,
Down
right?
the road. Yeah.
Where at the beginning with my biggest client, he was like, well, we could do profit share, but right now, like, I'd rather pay you like a very good base rate, and when we get to a certain break point, we can start looking into profit sharing, because that way I have an easier time being able to fund you
Yep.
and then get to a position where I can provide you with a rev share, and that is, I think it's very mutually beneficial for both you to be flexible with your client and for you to find a client who is willing to be flexible with you.
That opens up one final thing that I want to touch on. You said if channel hits, we're talking about profit share. If a channel hits and all of a sudden you've got millions of subscribers, so now your voice is on a channel with millions of subscribers. Is there such a thing as conflicts in this space? Like in the automotive space,
Oh,
like
right.
if I'm working
For
for a
sure.
Ford dealer in, name a town, I can't work for any of the other dealers in that town because I'm already working for this dealer. Is there conflicts, or is that something that you need to be thinking of? Like if you're working with these influencers or, YouTube channels or whatever, is there anything that says like if you're on this channel or in this sector or in, this specific niche or whatever, can you not be on any other ones, or is nobody talking about anything like that in this case?
Okay, so I can offer you two different perspectives on that
Okay.
in my experience. Like, the first one is, I have had the experience of some upcoming channels. For instance, there's some like channels that are like creating this content based on other creators, where it's like, this creator said this thing about this other creator and he got mad, like, there are these like gossip channels,
Yep.
what in other days would have been like e-news,
Right.
on
Yeah.
TV, right? And this one channel that was creating themselves from the ground up was like, sure, hop on, but we do want to make sure that you're not like part of any other channels in this kind of space. And I was like, well, no, no problem. I am not part of any other channels in this specific genre, and I won't take any others if you don't want me to keep the brand yours, right?
Yep.
However, at the same time, I do have the experience of, I have been voicing multiple gaming channels, where my voice is in both. However, each voice has a different approach, because each creator has a different voice and a different way of speaking,
Sure.
and they definitely, as a voice actor, as a dubber, you're trying to capture that person's personality and tone. Obviously, not to a T, because you're different humans and
Yep.
different, vocal cords, but you try to capture it, right? And I've never had a conflict in that sense. However, I do think if things were to completely, explode, um, you would have to think of it. I do think it would be great to anticipate it and discuss it. That is a bit unexplored territory for me, as this whole thing is in general unexplored territory as it
I
seems.
guess it would be a good problem to have, right? If all of a
It would
sudden
be a
one of your
great problem
channels
to
hits so
have.
big that you gotta sort
Exact.
that
Oh
out.
man, I
But
gotta choose. Oh no,
yeah, hopefully
like,
you're making enough money at that point that it's like,
exactly.
oh well, whatever. I can
Yeah,
I can
and
do
and,
this
and
for a
that's
while.
another
But
thing. Like, dubbing for an active channel, it's difficult to have more than one, because active channels for in the gaming content space, at least, are uploading like 2-3 videos a day, and
wow.
dubbing it takes more time
Yep.
than creating it. It's a
Sure.
lot more time consuming. Like, if I'm
Yep.
given a 16-minute video, what was that for the creator? Like an hour or two of recording and then edit it down? Well, for me, it's probably going to be like 4 or 6 hours of line by line recording, without considering the transcription and translation of it.
Do you have a ratio that you kind of are work like? Can you predict now? Like, okay, so for every 1 minute of finished dub, I need 5 minutes of booth time, record time to get it to sync, or 1 minute is 10 minutes, or do you?
I
How, like,
think
now that you've been doing it for a while, do you kinda
yes.
have a ratio that you're able to say, because that I'm assuming that helps you kinda also predict your
Yes,
workload.
it does help. However, there is definitely eventualities
Yeah,
because
sure.
sometimes there are some lines that are just impossible. It's like, why can't I say this? And you're stuck there reading the
Right,
line over and over. And then there are some videos that are slower paced. And then there are others where your creator is super energetic and they're speaking super fast. And when you're dubbing, you don't have the luxury of slurring your words because
yep,
you have to protect your creator's brand.
yep,
You have to make the dub be completely loyal and clear to what the original is saying. So if you slur your words, you might run into a situation where you just made an influencer say something he didn't say. And
yeah,
that's dangerous. So you
that's a
have a lot of
problem.
responsibility in your hands. So sometimes it does take more, sometimes it takes less. However, I do think that it's kind of a proportion of for every 2 minutes of content, like finished content, it's sort of like 30 minutes of like recording and record line, edit it, record line, place it, record line, adjust effects,
Right.
etc.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of like that. But
Okay.
honestly, as you mentioned, it's a great problem to have that I do not I don't really have time or space or interest right now in like onboarding more channels because here's another thing. Um, a friend always would mention something about the invisible mental tax, right? Where it's very some people would more commonly know it as work life balance, and a great
Yep.
thing about our career and the way that we handle it is we get to choose how much work we want to have and how much income we want to have in exchange for how much freedom we want to have.
Yep.
And for me, uh, I grew up in a family that had to work extremely hard for extremely long hours to not even to be able to support a family that they weren't even able to spend time with, right?
Right.
So for me, it's very important to have that freedom and that that free time
Yep.
to choose like this is as much work as I'm going to do, and after that I'm not paying attention to it, and it's really a blessing to be able to do it. So uh, it is a blessing to be able to choose how much and to be able to say, you know what, this is enough. I don't need
Yep.
to work with anybody else. And
That's one of my favorite parts of the industry.
right. And coming back a little bit to what you were talking about conflicts, this one last thing that I wanted to add is you could say the same about people that dub animated shows and dub movies and dub series is like um why not? Like you have this person that voices this character, but that doesn't stop them from voicing this different character, right?
Valid.
Unless, of course, there's like exclusivity
Yep.
contracts and whatever, as there are in other industries. I think it's more of a case by case basis.
Okay.
But
Good to
I
know.
would definitely say if you're looking to get into this, if you're gonna be with a very active YouTuber because of the way YouTube is demanding of its creators to always be posting content of either a certain length or a certain regularity if they're shorter, or a certain like content density of like constant, like 3 videos a day, let's go, even if they're short. Um, be ready to not be able to onboard more than one,
Yeah,
like
that's right. It sounds like it's a pretty intense workload no matter what. Well,
but if you find a good client, you will find it very well rewarded and very worth it and very stable too, because that's another
nice.
thing. I get to skip the aspect of VO where it's like if I want to work every day of the month, I'm gonna have to reach out to a trillion people and send a bunch of auditions, and then some days I will find it and some days I won't. But a YouTuber, they have to put out content every day. So
So
you
there's a
have work every
consistency that's
day.
already built in there. Yep.
Exactly.
I
It's
love
very
it.
beneficial.
Well, Raphael, this has been fantastic. I will tell you that, 60 minutes ago, I didn't know anything about YouTube dubbing other than there's this guy named Raphael and he does some YouTube dubbing. And now I feel like you just took me to school on it. And so this has been absolutely incredible. I love that you were able to carve out this niche for yourself that combines all the different aspects of you and your personality and what you love and your passions, which makes it even more fun. And I am very grateful that you were willing to share so freely of how you've built that and some of the little tips and tricks that you've got along the way for the voice actor who might want to explore it now. Certainly, I think that they've learned enough from this episode, this interview, that they could at least start to open the door to that. So thank you for opening up a potential genre of voiceover for a lot of people who were probably like me and something they had never even really thought about before.
Hey, I mean, we got to share the wealth and help each other.
Right on,
It's a
man.
rough world out there, and the pleasure is all mine. Taking you to school was a pleasure after you took me to school. You know, you gotta give back, to the community for
Right
all of
on.
its help and assistance. And it's always a pleasure to go out there into the unknown and bring back the wealth to my fellows and share it. I think that's part of the positive impact that one can have in their communities. And I think more than ever, we got to band together as voice actors, creators,
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, and
Yep.
whatnot, and share knowledge. I think there's, especially in this hyper connected, hyper globalized, hyper like internet of everything and millions of people creating different things. I think there's space for everyone,
Yep.
just unexplored places where we can all fit.
Yep.
So no reason to keep the knowledge to oneself.
Right on. Well, thank you so much because you dropped a lot of knowledge in this one. So I appreciate it. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you for having me.